Thanks everyone for joining the first of our Vermont Vegetable and Berry Growers webinar series for the 2025 year. Had a lot of help putting this together from the Transition to Organic Partnership Program spearheaded by NOFA Vermont and part of this Northeast Mid-Atlantic Coalition, Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Clean Water Initiative Program provides funding for this, and of course the Veg and Berry Growers Association and all the amazing farmers who really are the ones who make this webinar series really full of information. So just quick reminder, since this is our first webinar of the year, you might be rusty. These are going to be recorded and posted on the Veg and Berry website, so you have access to them afterwards. If you don't want your camera on, that's fine, turn it off. Please stay muted. If you want to post questions as we go, you can throw them into the chat and we'll address them at the end. We're going to have a long, 15-minute chunk of time for conversation and questions. You can also use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen if you have something urgent you'd like addressed. And if you're willing to put your name in the chat, your farm, and any questions you have or input about bedding plants. And that's it. So I'm going to jump right in introducing Eli here, who's our first speaker. Thanks so much for joining, Eli. And I'm going to run through your slides. So as you talk, you can just give me a prompt to continue. But thanks a lot. Eli's joining us from Honeyfield Farm, where Valerie and Eli are doing an amazing job growing plants.
Well, thanks for saying that, and thanks for having me. This is good timing because we were just starting to clean and get our seasonal houses up and running, turning on the well and seeing if it still runs and all that stuff. So I farm at Honeyfield Farm in Norwich with my partner Valerie and our crew of up to a seasonal peak of about 25 folks between all of our different enterprises, which are about 12 acres of certified organic veggies. And then we also grow 11 greenhouses of mostly live plants, with 2 greenhouses of in-ground tomatoes and veggies, and then that leaves 9 greenhouses of benchtop production of live plants. About half and half, a bit more annual and perennial flowers than veggie and herbs by like greenhouse space, but the veggies and herbs are really kind of one of the fastest growing parts of that enterprise, both for retail and for wholesale. So we do, I lost track of how many plants, but we do a lot of plants, 11 houses worth. It was somewhere in, I lost track at like 1 million plants and then stopped wanting to count because it was overwhelming. But I think that, I forget if there's another intro slide, Becky, but you can click to the next one and see. Yeah, there we go. So then that's just one of our greenhouses and a farmer's market display. So we sell our plants through our retail greenhouses at the farm. We also do the Norwich Farmers Market, and then we do a wholesale enterprise that's about half of the veggie and herbs we grow go to our local like gardener supply company in over in Lebanon, New Hampshire, and a bunch of other local accounts that we appreciate growing for. So it's a nice early season income. It's also a lot of early season expense, but we like doing it. You can go to the next slide, which I think will be a familiar scene to everyone. And this was a pop quiz we did in an in-person workshop to see if anyone could guess what month of the year this is. So I'm curious. I actually can't read the chat because I'm on like a really old tablet. So I'm going to let you take a silent guess. But the answer is that we actually don't know either. This could be any of the months listed, and probably is a scene that you've seen on your farms too. And we will get in. Right now it's all frozen, so we've got a little buffer, but it will be back to the mud probably by the end of the week, and then back to the freeze and the mud. I think you can go to the next slide. So I'm just going to run through basically some details of our system. We do a different soil mix for our different enterprises. We do a flower mix, which you can kind of see in these green bales on the one picture. That's a sterile peat and perlite mix that we just kind of run through our soil mixer as is. We add a little bit of root shield, but that's for our non-organic flower production. We use a pre-bagged perennial blend for our conventional perennials that we don't send through the mixer. It's just a bark and peat mix. But then for our veggie and herb starts, we do use our own organic mix that we make with our our soil mixer, which you can see this blue machine, our SB01, which makes 1 yard of soil at a time. Depending on how fast we can get the ingredients in, it can be a pretty quick process. So our ingredients are compost, which we source from Vermont Compost Company, their manure compost, which we buy in the 2 yard sling bags. And we get, I want to say like 8 or so batches out of a bag. We have peat moss, extra coarse perlite and vermiculite, the coarsest we can get basically. We use a little bit of lime, powdered lime. We use some blood meal for nitrogen. We use some Epsom salt, and we add some root shield granules as well, just for soil disease, root disease, things like that. And we get most of these supplies from Progressive Grower, and I'm going to plug them because they are always really good to us, and they've been a great partner over the years. I think you can go to the next slide now. So within our soil mix system, we kind of inherited this, not inherited, we came into a farm that was already rolling for years with a really, well-developed system, which was Killdeer Farm, and we're extremely fortunate to be able to kind of pick up where they left off and keep running with it, but we're also trying to modernize a bit as we go. So the machinery and kind of the systems that we have are very low tech for the volume that we're doing, and it's a goal to like move towards higher tech. But also it's kind of cool to see how much we can produce and at what quality with not very complicated machinery or infrastructure. But one of the things that we try to do is streamline as much as possible. So when we kind of started our systems, we had way too many different sizes of pots and trays, and we've streamlined it down to basically just this short list you see here for our veggie and herb starts, so that it just makes it faster it makes everything faster to be doing more of the same thing. The difference between I don't know if people are super familiar with like the 1004 and 804. That would be one of the standard 1020 trays. It would be a 10 4-packs or 8 4-packs in the little kind of like pull apart packs. We do a lot of our veggie and herbs in those. You can kind of see some cilantro in the corner of this other picture. And so the reason we would use 1004 versus 804 for us is a little bit about the plug size. So we find that veggies that go by quickly, that really are very hungry and kind of have a short peak where they look really nice as, retail plugs like cilantro, dill, brassicas. Sorry, my radio's going off. I got crew back already. So the difference between the 1004 and the 804 in our minds is the ones that are a little hungrier, like the brassicas, the cilantro, the dill, we will give an 804 tray, so it gives them just more nutrients around them as they grow, and it gives us a longer window to sell them. The things like the lettuces and the onions that aren't as picky about it, we use the 1004 trays because we get more saleable packs per tray. So that's why we use the 2 of those versus everything else is kind of in its own category for size. You can go ahead into the next one. So I'll talk a little bit about kind of what some of the ways that we have learned to get our team on the same page as us for consistent results. And watering is always the thing we spend like the most time training on, because it's just so finicky, or it's so easy to misinterpret what someone is telling you and have someone overwater or underwater. And we folks here probably know that some plants are definitely going to bounce back better than others. So things that we're really careful in the herbs and veggies is at the beginning of the season, we run things like our lavender and our rosemary, especially, and our thyme. We run them very dry. And we've had definitely issues of overwatering where they get too saturated and they don't thrive. And we have to kind of peel off an algae layer and really resuscitate them. So we go very dry on some plants. But then others like the dill and cilantro, I found if we underwater them like one time, they turn all yellow, or the dill turns brown, the cilantro turns red, and they never look good again. So training our team kind of the nuances of which plants want what is really helpful. And so if you click to the next slide, I'll show the moisture scale that we talk to our crew about. And we always use this same number reference system. And there's a lot of info. You can just Google like 1 through 5 moisture scale and find a lot more details about it in a bunch of different publications. But the general way we communicate about moisture level with our team to get everyone on the same page. So like you can see, one is like dry as dust. It's really like shrunken in from the edges of the cell. And you can tell it's really kind of like contracted into itself, and it's going to be very hydrophobic. So it's, once it gets to that level, it's hard to water it thoroughly. And especially on the cell trays, it's hard to then water all the way to the bottom of that plug. So often we find if things get way too dry, they really don't bounce back because where their roots, are pulling from. It's just really hard to get enough water to them again. So on most plants, we try not to get below a 2. But then on the other end, all the way to a 5 is just super saturated. There's water puddling off, and there's no space for oxygen within, in the roots. So finding that balance of like they want the water, but they also need the space for the oxygen. Otherwise, the plants will just kind of suffocate. So we try to keep most of our plants between a 2 and a 4, but paying attention to the rhythm of letting them dry down to a 2 and then watering them up to a 4, and knowing the nuance of some plants not really wanting to I won't take my rosemary above a 3 if I can help it. But then I won't let certain other things, I won't let my cilantro or my dill dry below a like 2.5. But this number scale is a really helpful way that we use for our team to just know what we're talking about when we say water it a little or water it a lot. You can click to the next one. For seeding, I know everyone's kind of got a different setup for how much they're mechanizing their seeding, and I'm honestly embarrassed to admit how little mechanization we have in the volume of seeding that we do. But across kind of however you're getting the seeds down, what we've found for for these nice retail starts that all want to be very consistent in their growth, we find the seed depth is definitely the biggest factor for us and how fast they'll all, pop up and grow at the same rate. So we try to use dibblers on all of our different tray sizes and streamline how few different sizes of trays we use. But then we also use in our soil mix, we take some of our soil mix and we add in about like a 4-to-1 ratio. We add in like about 1/4 of that with a extra fine vermiculite just to loosen it up quite a bit. And then we use that as like a fine topping layer above our seeds on most items. Some things we just do straight vermiculite. Some things like peas don't care at all, and we just do the regular soil. But for most things, we do that fine topping layer, and then we water it in with one of the fog nozzles to kind of set it around the seeds. And that helps prevent you going in, for regular watering with too much pressure and just scattering all the seeds around, which I'm guessing many of you have experienced, and we have definitely seen happen plenty of times. And we try to hit on our kind of rotations of like the lettuces, the brassicas, things that grow quickly. We try to hit about a 7 to 10 day succession on plantings. So for our, May through, or I guess April through June retail season, we might have 10 or 12 rounds of each different green. And go to the next slide. So I will talk a little bit about what helped us get standardization and like a really consistent result on our potting up. And I want to shout out Julie at Red Wagon Plants, who has been a amazing mentor for us and really helped us kind of standardize our planting techniques. So our biggest thing was like getting a rhythm with our whole team and getting everyone kind of familiar with the rhythm so that it flows well. Using the same planting methods, which we'll go to in the next slide, and then getting the moisture level to where we want it before we plant. So I think the next slide lays out our planting method, which we follow for almost everything we transplant. So we buy in a lot of our plugs for our early herbs. We buy in from Hillcrest, and then with our annual flowers and perennial flowers, we do a lot of plugs as well. A lot of other things we direct seed, but the process is basically the same in all of them, and we can work about 5 to 6 people into the team around the table doing this. So we fill the trays with our soil mixer, and then we go ahead and water the trays until they're about a 3-ish on that moisture scale. And the reason that we pre-water them is it helps. We found it helps the transplanting. Again, that was part of something that we learned from Julia Red Wagon, and it's been a great. It's been really helpful for us in getting consistent, healthy plants. So we pre-water the soil. We don't water them in again after we transplant. So that's the one water they get usually for like a day or so. Before we start planting, we tag the tray so we don't lose track of what's being potted up. So you can see kind of ahead of where there's plants laid out, there's one tag in each tray, and then there's like a stack underneath the tray. Then we go through and lay out all the plants, and then we make a quick, usually with our finger, just a quick dibble, and then we use a cinch technique that I'd be happy to show. I don't know if we have like an actual picture, but it's kind of like, I'm gonna use my hands. It's kind of like going in, instead of planting it down, you're kind of going in from the side and pinching right around the stem of the plant. And the idea is you don't want the air pockets. You don't want to create an air pocket that things like fungus gnats would get into. So really trying to kind of create almost a little bit of like a seal around the stem, with the entire plug being under the soil. And then we go through and tag each of the pots in the tray, and then we clear the table and do it again. And then again and again and again. So then I wanted to just show kind of a couple examples of like, this is early in our career with catnip, and I see a bunch of things on these pictures that I would do differently now. So I'm gonna start with this front middle. I can see at the very front of the screen, I can see the little paper lining of the plug sticking up out of the soil. So we try to avoid that because it's a kind of an invitation for like fungus gnats. Also, like if the plug is showing, it'll suck some of the moisture away from the roots of the plant. So we want the plug covered. And then we also, like you can see, there's kind of some like, leaves that are not looking great. We would clean up those plugs before planting. We might trim them a little bit. They're kind of branchy. So we do spend a little time cleaning up our plugs before we plant them. And I think the next slide kind of shows more of what we're aiming for now. So you can kind of see each of these looks pretty uniform. It's a flat soil surface. There's not really a dip or a valley right around the plant. The plugs and roots are fully covered, and the soil cinched around the stem will help prevent the fungus gnats from coming in, which they're kind of ever present. So if we can hold them back a little bit, it helps the plant grow healthy. We can go to the next slide. So like I mentioned, we do buy in quite a few of our herb plugs from Hillcrest. We go through a plant broker because we also have all these greenhouses full of annual and perennial plants. So we work with Michelle's. I don't know what Henry F. Michelle's. So we have like one kind of like representative who handles all of our issues like credits and orders and things like that. I know a lot of folks work directly with Hillcrest or get it through Griffin Supply. We're happy to pass along our Scott's contact info if anyone's trying to kind of get in on a larger scale. We also sometimes can bring in like, we sometimes will offer up like if we have a little bit extra on our trays on the listserv. But generally, I think Hillcrest is one of the only like organic suppliers that I know of. So I know a lot of folks buy from them, and we usually have pretty good quality from them. They always do come in with like a little bit of fungus gnat, and we're always looking out for like thrips and stuff, but generally they come in pretty healthy. And we do a scout when the trays come in to look for any of those issues. We do a dip with Microtrol, I think is what we use for our dip. And we document any issues and send pictures to get credits if we need them. And then we try to get them planted within a week to keep them growing healthy. And I think the next slide shows what they sometimes come in looking like. So sometimes they come in a little bit jumbled. They do come in the mail. Sometimes they come in frozen. But usually we can get a credit and we can salvage what we can. That's not the usual, but it is a possibility. You can go to the next slide. So that was kind of my very quick run through of like what I could think of as the main components of our system. And then I wanted to just take a minute to run through some of the resources that we use, because we're going into year 6 here, but we still feel like total amateurs, kind of bumbling our way along. And if not for the help of all of these great people and organizations, we would be completely lost. So like starting with kind of just the mentor relationships we've had through our farm career, I think are like the most valuable relationships we could have. So we got our start at Riverberry Farm up in Fairfax. I want to give them a shout out because they have beautiful greenhouses, and that's kind of what like gave us the the interest in growing like both the veggie and herb starts and flower starts. And then we've worked since with Julie Roubeau at Red Wagon Plants quite a bit to help us develop our systems. And then of course, Jake and Liz Guest at Killdeer Farm left an amazing legacy for us to kind of pick up and run with, and we still work with them closely. Ali, yes, we do use Root Shield in all of our transplants or in all of our soil mix. We add it in, and we often put it in to our field starts as well. So I'm not going to like kind of list out all of these different resources, but feel free to take a screenshot. They're all amazing resources, and I'll point out just some of that maybe aren't as familiar. Dirt Capital Partners is who actually owns our farm. We are in a lease to own. They're a great resource for sometimes situations that don't apply or aren't quite the right fit for like a land trust kind of option. They have a lot of flexibility, and they've been fantastic resources to us. We are, in theory, hopefully, if there still is an FSA to give us a loan, we are supposed to be purchasing the farm this spring. We'll see what happens, but we still recommend reaching out to them. We don't do a lot of liquid feed on our plants as they grow because we have so much nutrition in our compost. Like our soil mix is very rich, and because they're so kind of fast, we haven't really done a lot with the veggies. We haven't needed a lot of extra nutrition. I saw a few other chats, but Becky, should I
Why don't you
kind of
keep
let the next
answer?
folk?
Why don't you answer a couple questions while Andrew gets his slides up? That would be great. Give him a chance
Okay,
to share his screen.
sure. It looks like the questions are like about Root Shield, and I have to be honest. I'm curious if someone else could answer this better because I'm kind of have mostly just done it because that's what I see other people doing. And I know that we are always being mindful of like soil-borne and like root diseases. So my understanding is that it helps both the transplant kind of them ease the transplant shock, and then also have like better tolerance for like heat and cold variations. And then the other question about like the water temp is that I do know folks that are like kind of warming up their water, and we haven't done that and haven't really had any noticeable issues. But maybe they would like it more. So thank you all. I'm gonna mute myself so Andrew can get started, and I'm very curious to see what Andrew and Jack have to say, and I'll stick around for questions at the end.
Thank you so much, Eli. I wish I had heard that same presentation 20 years ago, so I would have had a better start with my greenhouse skills. I can add a little bit to the Root Shield thing in the chat and hand it over to Andrew. Thank you so much for taking the time, Andrew.
Oh, you bet. Thanks, Becky, and for inviting me. And thanks, Eli. That was awesome. And I would just say, we do a lot of the exact same techniques and the same sort of process in how we are growing our plants. In terms of water management, I would just, I wasn't going to talk about it, but Eli reminded, it's crucial. We generally keep things drier than more moist. It's easier to moisten something than to dry it down, especially if you go through like a cloudy, snowy day in May, and like you've just watered everything really heavily. It's always cause for disaster sometimes. But in any case, I'm going to speak a little bit more about like what we grow, and sort of a little bit towards varieties, but just it's sort of basic stuff, and just our marketing as well. Just to quickly, our first season was 1995. My mentor was Jack Manix and Karen Manix, and I learned so much from them. And then I started to farm for myself and realized I didn't know anything. And so I'm still learning every day. But we've seen a lot of changes in our retail or our bedding plant. We sell everything retail. We do about 25 to 30 acres, depending upon the year, of mixed veggies and small fruit organically. And we sell pretty much, we sell all our bedding plants through our farm stand or through our plant stand. We sell most of our produce, 98% retail through our farm stand and a couple CSAs. So we don't really do much wholesaling in our market. And when we first started in the 1990s, Martha Stewart was just coming in to her own pre stock trading issues or whatever, and she was great for our business, and she really helped to people became very aware of gardening. I guess gardening comes in waves, and we definitely kind of rode a wave of like specialty annuals and unusual, well, back then they were unusual, harder to find annuals that were propagated vegetatively. And we did also organic veggie starts as well. But plants, annuals and ornamentals were our main, were definitely more, a larger percentage of our sales. But I would say that sort of dipped for us, at least. I know Jack, he just keeps, I think keeps expanding his annuals and ornamentals. But for us, for our market, I think, especially the last few years, there's a couple of new greenhouses sort of opened up in the area, and Walmart and Home Depot. Those are, there's some more competition than there was. But what is still increasing for us are our veggie start, or at least they took a larger share, and we saw a lot more organic veggie starts than we used to. So that being said, this is our retail operation. The building with the red roof is our farm stand for produce. In front of it, sort of at the bottom of the screen, is our tree and shrub area, and then on the top of the screen on the right, you can see the yellow building is our display greenhouse. Behind there's like our sales kiosk and our display greenhouse. And then we have our, so inside we have plants, but then also outside we sell a lot. We display a lot of our plants as well. And what we put on the stuff that we grow inside, sell from the inside, tends to be more weather sensitive when it's in a cell or a pot or a tray or something. Whereas out in the garden, it's fine. But so we try and, you'll see a little bit of that. But and that's our outside display area. And we sell some perennials in the shade, but then most of our perennials are off the screen to your right. And yeah, we've expanded. This is probably about half, like the last 12 years we've been in this location. We used to sell where our trees and shrubs are now displayed, used to be all of our plants, but we moved everything back to give people more room. And a quiet, our farm is off the main road. Like you have to just go down about 100 feet off of Route 7, or 7A, which is pretty busy. So it's very quiet. It's kind of relatively quiet. And so it's a nice environment for people to shop in. And, just want to shout out, I've got a great staff, and two in particular for the greenhouse season, Brad and Rosie. Brad really manages our annual production and seeding and just general greenhouse management, watering, a lot of displays during plant sales time. He'll sort of set up, and he just has a great eye. And Rosie is awesome in that actually both she and Brad have very good attention to detail, which isn't necessarily my strength. And Rosie she does a lot of scouting. She is in charge of all the vegetable production in terms of seeding and just keeping an eye on stuff throughout the season, like when things need to go out into the field. And we do all of our seeding charts early over the winter. They're all made up. I meant to put a photo of the one on, but I forgot. And so pretty much, once that's done, I don't really need to, like Rosie takes care of the seeding, or Brad, throughout the season. And we'll call audibles, like, something one week didn't come up, so let's try, we'll try it again, but let's add something else to that seeding to make sure that we get broccoli because some variety didn't show up. or didn't come up or whatever. But pretty much I like having pretty much everything set up for the season in terms of seeding dates. It really makes my life easier. I don't have to track anything. It's all printed out we print out an Excel spreadsheet or whatever, and with dates and what plug flats or what seed or what how to seed them, what to cover them with, whatever. So that's really nice. And both Brad and Rosie are top waterers, and so that's super helpful. And then I have a whole bunch of other people who've been here lots of years, and they manage other parts of the farm, but just in terms of like bedding plant sales, amongst other things, Brad and Rosie take care of, do that. So just what do we grow to sell retail as far as plants go? Well, we start with veggies, right? And I was thinking for folks who maybe aren't doing too much, veggies, we're already growing, for many of us, I think we're vegetable farmers as well. And so we're already doing vegetables. And so it's a great place to start. I would say, let me just like the top things that we're selling, of course, are, it's obvious, but like tomatoes, peppers, cucurbits, lettuce, brassicas. Plus we do like okra and artichokes, and, we get some, we try and basically do everything that we have that we can. We will try and grow to sell to our customers as bedding plants. And also with that is trying to, offer a wide selection of everything. So it's, we all offer, lots of oddball hot peppers or oddball tomato, heirloom tomatoes, and we grow things in different size pots. But I think Eli covered that pretty well. I mean, yeah, we do mostly 806s and some 1206s, but I would say most of our veggies are in 806 or in single pots. And herbs, Eli touched a lot on that. They're relatively easy in a sense. We get as well Hillcrest plugs. These are our top sellers. Basil, we don't buy as a plug. We just seed it directly and cover it with a little vermiculite. We cover most of anything direct seeded. Mostly, there's some things we don't. A lot of things I should say, we cover with fine vermiculite. Certain things, larger seeds, we'll just make a finger hole or a dibble and put just direct seed and just cover it with soil or just tuck the soil around it. But so basil, we start from seed, and parsley from seed, but rosemary, thyme, oregano, sages, all those things we buy in as plugs from Hillcrest. And yep, like Eli said, running herbs dry is our number one, like early in the spring especially. It's like, let's run them dry. We use Vermont compost for our organic starts, and especially when we're doing herbs, we'll cut it with another organic peat-based soil from Lambert's. And then with herbs, we actually add extra vermiculite sometimes. I mean, not vermiculite, I'm sorry, perlite, to give more drainage, because herbs really want to be kept dry, and they don't need, excuse me, they don't need all the fertility that I think you get from Vermont compost. It's great, straight for tomatoes. For herbs, I don't necessarily think it's super helpful, or it can be a little too much. So in annuals, we grow, just like Eli was saying, we grow seed grown and vegetative, both for flowers, and then there's foliage plants as well. And I would say for our seed grown annuals, our number one seller is zinnias. We do a lot of different, impatiens are good, pansies are good, but I mean, we just sell so many zinnias. We do all different types. The seed's expensive for a lot of the varieties, but we still like, we still like to grow a lot of those. Like State Fair and all the double tall ones. The Magellans are big sellers. And with zinnias, our little trick, or I don't know, it's not a trick, but what we did, we used, and I'll show you how we seed things at the end. We used to seed them and then like into seed flats and then transplant the zinnias, and they would just die off like crazy. And so we started growing zinnias in 804s with 2 seeds per cell direct seeded. And so we never transplant them, and they're a little hard to manage or to like deal with, because the seed's kind of weird and it's hard to sort of get. It's not like a corn seed or something that's easy to manipulate. You know, it's sort of difficult, but we have 100% stand on our zinnias, and 2 seeds per cell, so you don't have any. If you just do 1 seed per cell, even though it's, you know, if there's a seed missing, if 1 seed doesn't germinate, then that pack isn't really saleable as a 4-pack, and we sell it as the same price as a 6-pack. So zinnias are direct seed, but most, you know, there's some other things like nasturtiums we direct seed, or morning glories, but most things like, marigolds or cosmos. Well, cosmos sometimes we direct seed, but marigolds, petunias, you know, portulac, whatever, all the oddball annuals that we grow, we'll seed those into a seed flat and then transplant them by hand. And it's slow and tedious, but you know, it's what we do. And we used to have a direct, like a plug popper. We don't, our volume in annuals is just not what it used to be. It's down. So and people are really moving more towards vegetative annuals. We sell a lot of, like over on your right there, the things in 4-inch pots, the proven winners, like calibrachoas, super petunias. But we also do a lot of, you know, a lot of accents like coleus and plectranthus and all these other vegetative starts that are, you know, really just, or, you know, Ipomea marguerite, which is sweet potato vine. So let me get my feet back under me here. And so, yeah, so, you know, those are sort of the mix of annuals we do. One thing I wanted to say was we do get some sort of pack material in as plugs, like our early pansies and our lisianthus. We buy, or like in our fibrous begonias, we buy those as plugs. Oh, and just to touch on, our broker is Griffin. Tom Kirby is my sales rep, and Tom and I, we get along really well. I used to use Michelle's, but just Tom's really nearby. He comes a lot to visit, and Griffin is just over, you know, 50 minutes away in New York State. So we've switched to Griffin, and yeah, Tom's been great. But you know, Michelle's, we used to use Michelle's. They were awesome also, and we'd use ball seed also. If you get a ball seed account, you can go on their web track and you can find any plug you need or any seed. Mostly it's treated seeds, so we don't buy seeds from them. But like if we're looking for like some fill-in plug material, instead of calling Tom, I'll just go on the ball web track and I can order for the next week and see what they have. So stuff can show up that way. Hanging baskets are big. They're not huge for us. I mean, we used to do a lot more. But we buy our plugs for our baskets. We generally buy pre-mixed plugs from Duman, like the Duman mixes. They're confetti, and then there's also a Trixie mix, which isn't Duman, but the confetti mixes. And we love, you know, we love saying, you know, we love having hanging baskets. They look great, and we sell a fair number, and we also buy in a lot of trees and all our perennial. Well, we do some perennials in packs that we start from seed, because people they get a great deal. We do them in 4-packs generally because it gives them room to grow and to have some staying power. And customers pay a premium for those, so they're getting 4 plants for $6, but it's a lot cheaper than buying a gallon for $9.95. But a lot of gardeners, they want to buy a big gallon that's going to flower that year, or it's already in bloom, like on the right there. And so, we'll sell we buy in a lot of 2nd-year perennials from Plant Group and Pride's Corner, and our trees and shrubs. We do a small amount of trees and shrubs, a fair number of fruiting trees and shrubs like apples and blueberries and raspberries, and we get all those from Pride's Corner. And Plant Group's a little cheaper than Pride's Corner. My feeling is that Pride's Corner is better quality, generally, more filled out pots, but you pay an extra couple bucks a plant. So, and then just a couple things. We love growing succulents, and we love to put them in, like we plant them up. I know it's silly. We don't grow that many succulents, but we love to plant them up in like a mixed tray because it looks like a coral reef. And so it just has nice eye appeal out there. And really gives people a thought, like an idea of how they're going to, what they could do with their with a container or something of succulents. And it's a little slower to transplant, but I just love it. I generally do that myself because I just love doing it, and it's really fun. But just to show you, like, so Eli looked like he was doing some seed flats, maybe those sort of I'm not sure, Eli, I don't mean to, I saw a lot of like he was seeding into plugs. And that's what's nice about seeding into plugs is it's really quick to transplant, but it's slower to seed. We seed, and I learned this, working at Walker Farm, is we use the 1020, the solid 1020s with drain holes. So they do have drain holes in the bottom, and we fill them with potting soil. And we have a non-organic Lambert's that we use as our potting soil for the non-organic stuff, but in this case, you're looking at brassicas there. And so we're using Vermont compost. We'll fill it like half to 2/3 of the way. And then we have a stick, which we've had the same stick for, this will be the 31st season with that same stick. If we lose the stick, I'm going to go out of business. But it's a little piece of lath that we make 7 troughs really quickly in each tray. And then we tap seed into there. And we sort of try and get about, depending upon the germination, we try and get 100 viable transplants per row. So it's 2 trays of 806s basically per row. So you get about 14, generally get like 14 to 15 because we tend to, it never looks thick enough. So we'll always seed a little extra. So we'll get like 15, 16 trays out of a seed flat. And we do cover them with vermiculite. We have a little germination chamber we built that we have some things to help stack trays and different shelves. And so we can stack about, 20, 40, 60, maybe 60 flats. Then we built another one. So we can do like 100 seed flats at a time. Yep. And that's what we do with those. A couple things. So we don't use like a fogging nozzle when we water ours in. There's a thing called a Wonder Waterer, and it reduces the pressure. It has this really nice pattern, and it helps to sort of not blow the seeds out of the seed flat. I mean, foggers are great too. They just take a little bit longer, but the Wonder Water is pretty nice. And then also, we have a couple of soil mixers like Eli's, but we generally mix ours moist and fill the trays with moist soil. Not super wet, but I think whenever we transplant into dry soil, we just have, and I think partly it's because I saw that, Eli's using those plugs and we're not using plugs. So we're sort of putting in a bare root plant, there's nothing there. So when you transplant it, it wants to get moisture like right away, especially if it's a hot day. So we transplant into moist soil. And so we'll mix water into our soil, then fill the trays. And we have a soil mixer for organic and one for non-organic. And we also use Root Shield. We use a bunch of beneficials, which I think Jack's going to talk about, so I won't go there. But I would say we start with our beneficials as soon as we open the greenhouse, and that's a lot of the plugs come in. It's always good to check plugs for, bugs and disease and things. And anyways, I'll just finish and just say this is our display house. We try and this is in the morning when we try and we want our display house to sort of have an eye appeal with lots of color and also textures. So there's coleus on one table, and next to that is flowering plants around it, and then there's other things in here, but we try and have this sort of like nice colorful feel. And it helps when my son takes the photos because he uses various filters that make it look even brighter, because I don't take any, all these are my son's photos. I don't take any photos. And so that's it. That's my talk. Thanks very much.
Those colors are really a welcome sight right now. So Thank you. A lot of good information. Thank you, Andrew.
I'm going to try and stop sharing.
A question or two while Jack queues up his slides. If anyone has one. I don't see any in the chat.
Great.
I did have one question, I guess, like, have you gone back and forth between doing those direct, like the bare root transplants versus the plugs, or have you always done it the way you're doing it now?
Right. So just to be clear, like, so we buy in plugs of things that are, vegetative, and you have to buy plugs. And some things we buy as plugs, but there's some things we've always used uh, the way that sort of, in the trays. I think partly just because it's faster to seed. I guess it's slower to plant. And I don't know. That's just the way. And also it takes up a lot less greenhouse space to have 15 flats worth of plant material in a 1020 versus like, if you're doing them in 288s, I guess that's five trays. So, it's a third of the space. I think
Yeah.
that math is correct. So anyways, that's my thinking around it. And plus it's just what we've done. Doesn't mean I can still change, but
If you lose your stick, you might change.
yeah,
but-
if I lose a stick, yeah, exactly. If I lose a stick, I'm changing.
Well, it looks
Don't
like
come
your
down and
slides are
steal
up, Jack. So, yeah. Thanks, Andrew.
Okay. Can you hear me okay? Good. Yeah, thanks, Andy and Eli. That was a great, I'm still learning stuff too, and it's amazing how some of my students have become my teachers now. So that's pretty good. I just I was running out of time last night, so I had chat AI to do this program. So let's hope it goes okay. Also, I know Vern is listening. Vern, I hope you're feeling better, and I hope we can't get flu through Zoom. So we'll see what happens. We're Walker Farm in downtown Dummerston, Vermont, which is considered the banana belt of Vermont, down in southern Vermont, just north of Brattleboro. We're located on the yellow line of Route 5, so we have good visibility, and it's an easy place for customers to pull off. Right now we have 26 greenhouse structures. We do 30 acres of organic field vegetables, and we have a 25-acre organic Christmas tree farm. And we're big into what is now very popular among farmers called CEA, Controlled Environment Agriculture. Our greenhouses are a buffet of, we have just about every company in the book, from Rimmel and Polytex and Prospiant and XS Smith, and of course tons of loads of greenhouses from Ed at Ledgewood Inn. So we have a lot of different structures, a couple of gutter connects, which I will probably start preheating a little tonight, the 2 gutter connects before the storms, because we're due to get a couple of well, actually, I think there's 3 in the forecast of 5 to 6 inch wet, heavy snows. So I like to preheat those to 75 degrees, start a couple hours before the storm. And it costs me a little bit in propane, but it's cheaper than building a new greenhouse. So, oops, we like to do that. Let me go back one. Where am I here? So we're big into beneficials and scouting, and we learned a lot, of course, from Cheryl and Margaret at the Tri-State Greenhouse Conferences, and from talking with Carol at IPM Labs, and had a great conversation with Peter at Copert Biologicals the other day. So we do a lot of yellow sticky cards to get indicators. I'm very fortunate in that our head propagator can spot a thrips about 50 feet away, and she does a great scouting job for us, and we've trained some other people to do scouting too. We're split farm organic, which means that we have a number of conventional greenhouses, because a lot of the flower plugs and cuttings we get in are not certified, but we do probably a third of our greenhouses are for flowers, and about 2/3 for either organic bedding plant production or in-ground growing. I just actually, I'm a little late, I just actually ordered our banker plants from IPM Labs, and I was a little disappointed. I've learned a lot from Tri-State IPM, but I was a little disappointed in this year's presentation, because they focused a lot on the fertilities for beneficials, which I don't think are an option, especially for us in late winter, early spring, because they're very susceptible to HAF fans and to heater and heater fans. I really prefer Ophidius because aphids are our main concern. We pretty much can control thrips and whitefly and mites with beneficials like almost 100%. But aphids, we generally have an outbreak. And so we've developed this program where we sort of run our own insectary. So these have been a huge help to us. These are called bug dorms. And originally we got them from Taiwan, but I think you can get them in the US now. And so we have a number of these, and they exclude pests from. So what we'll do is we'll start we'll get our banker plants in, and then we'll immediately start another set of banker plants from the seed they supply. And so we'll once the banker plants get to an appropriate size, we'll order the oat aphids or the pea aphids if we put actually on fava bean banker plants, because that's where we're going to put our Ophidius ervi, which is the most important Ophidius for us because it goes after the foxglove aphid. The Ophidius comani and matricarii are kind of too slow to parasitize the foxglove. So the ervis, they're a little more expensive, but they've worked really well for us. And I did learn from Peter at Copert. We were using Colmanii pretty much to do the peach and melon aphid, but he says that actually the matricarii is a better parasite for that. So what we'll do is once we get the aphids, we'll disperse them onto our banker plants. We'll isolate them in these tents and let them multiply. And then when we're ready to add the Ophidius, we'll take one of those plants out, put it in a separate tent so the aphids can grow on other banker plants, and then we'll add the Ophidius. And what they'll do is they will parasitize the pea or oat aphids on those plants. And so we're getting probably 10 times the amount of Ophidius that we originally purchased, and we're saving hundreds of dollars. And so if we can keep this going through into May, and then of course, just like all farmers sort of lose track in May, we're doing field planting and the greenhouse sides are open, the natural predators and parasites are coming in, so it's not quite as important. But you can watch these things once we get a good parasitization on our banker plants, then we'll take those plants out except for one, and we'll spread them through our various greenhouses. And we'll take that one and we'll put it in with the previous batch of bankers that just have the aphids on it. So we're continually multiplying our plants. And I think that's worked really well for us as far as beneficial control. Like I say, we started going to the tri-state IPM conferences when they started, and they've been a huge influence on our bug control. Very good. And these are some other sources which you can use to purchase bugs or get information. And I strongly recommend all of them. So the thing with greenhouses is it's we're always living on the edge. You probably heard on the veg list, the supply chain, especially with energy, with the Canada maybe tariffs, how that might have affected us. Luckily, it's been put on hold for a little bit, but we're dealing with inflation, and of course, weather is the main thing. So we grow a bunch of transplants for other growers. We do about 2,000 grafted tomato plants for ourselves. We do 6 plantings of those. The last one seeded end of May, planted July 4th. That carries us into the beginning of December. But every year I have 1 or 2 growers call me, oh my God, my greenhouse froze, it got too hot or something happened. Do you have any extra? And we always try to have a little extra, but I just can't believe that growers grow these valuable greenhouses full of stuff, and they're so susceptible to weather that they don't have a $50 alarm system set up. Well, it's a little more than that because you have to have the control unit in your house. But this thermal alarm, we have two types of alarm systems, a monitored system. This is the thermal alarm, and it's a physical alarm system, which means you run the thermostat and you can daisy chain these. And we put toggle switches on them so we can shut them off in the summer, or we're not using a greenhouse, or we shut them off. But we run the thermostat wire back to the house to a control unit that is loud enough it actually wakes the dead up in the cemetery up the road. So you get out of bed quick and start to handle it. This is the Easy Alert system from we got from Knowles Greenhouse. The original one I had went out of business, but this is a great alarm. And when you buy it, you can get it at I think I have there. If you can get this Knowles 2025 greenhouse supply catalog, they have all kinds of these alarms which you can set up yourself. You can set up a doorbell, electric doorbell, really cheaply. But I really highly recommend getting this Knowles catalog and checking these things out. It comes with the Easy Alert system comes with sort of a cumbersome thermostat wireless unit in itself, which is kind of cool. But we prefer the Manix system. It's a lot cheaper, and they have a lot more variability in the types of monitors that you can get. This is a temperature and humidity sensor that we use in a number of the greenhouses, especially our tomato greenhouses, to keep track of the humidity. And you can set these for a high and a low temperature, alert when the battery's low. And they take these 2032 sort of, quarter size batteries that are in all the electronics, and it should change them every couple of years probably. And they just have saved our butt many times. These, if you sign up with Monit, or Robert Arnold can sign you up and fix you up with his company, but they'll send you a robocall, a text message, and an email. So one way or another. Oops, got a special guest star here. We'll put him down. Black Cat is actually a good luck for me. And these are just very valuable units. One of the units that I like that Monit makes too, and I have these on. We have 5,000-gallon propane tanks, and I have these on a number of them. It's a propane tank monitor. I have alert set at when it's down to 20%, and so then I can get on the phone. My gas company is AmeriGas, which is actually pretty good these days. It was horrible for a while. They bought out every other gas company we had, so we don't have much of a choice. But these propane tank monitors are really nice for making sure you've got fuel for example, for this storm that's coming up. We're right on the border of where the ice may turn to snow, so we may lose power or need a lot of heat. But one of the biggest comforts that we put in the last few years, a few years ago, we put in automatic generators, because I got tired of waking up at 2:30 when the bars closed and somebody hit a utility pole and I had to come out during a snowstorm and haul my generators out of the barn and stay out there all night running them. So that's been a great help to us. So automatic generators, but having a generator on hand, of course, is really cool. So the Monit system, this is a snapshot. We have, I think, a 20-unit subscription. You can get more or less, and I can just go through and check all these. No matter where I am in the country, really, or out of the country, I can check what's going on in my greenhouses with these monitors. I can set alarms, disable alarms, and it's just I've just been really happy with it. And I put my son on it and a couple other of our workers too, so they get woken up. They need to suffer like I do sometimes. So I put them on the system. Another thing I recommended, I couldn't believe that more people don't have these. I have about 6 or 7 of them, and I loaned like 3 of them out to a grower. Was it last May or it wasn't, maybe the May before that, when we had on May 17th, the big snowstorm and the freeze, and yeah, it was 2 years ago when the orchardists lost all the apples. And a lot of people had their greenhouses planted with tomatoes. And so these units, so you get, I think I get them from Granger, just hook up to a 100-pound LP tank. They require no electricity. The only thing you got to do is you got to be a little careful you don't set it too high, or you might burn a hole through the top of your greenhouse. If it's a low greenhouse, you should check that out. But these have come in very handy on on heater failures through the years. I've used them many times. The other thing, these guys have gone over it. I think the biggest labor saver we have on our farm are our soil machines. We actually have 4 of them now because we're split farm organic, so we have to have separate machines for our organic mix, which we use McEnroe, and we also mix that sometimes with Lambert's organic mix, peat mix, and then in the non-organic greenhouses we use Pro Mix with mycorrhizae. And I will say that we never really just water. We usually, if we're not fertilizing with organic fertilizer, we're running root shield through it, or every 3rd time we're using mycorrhizae, which is especially important with young plants because it fixes itself to the roots and protects them and gets them off to a really good start. So I've really started using a lot of mycorrhizae. You can get I think it's Micro Apply. It's OMRI certified, but these machines, when we really get going in mid-March, we have at least 2 machines running 7 days a week. So we're lucky enough to be in an area that attracts 3 zones of customers. So we have to do a lot of shifts. 3/4 of our sales are ornamentals in May, although we do a fairly large organic bedding plant business. We're all retail, and like I said, we do all these other things, but 1/3 of our gross is in May. So we have a couple hundred people on the farm. Maybe at one time, we're lucky enough that our retail areas are spread out enough so that we have a lot of different departments, and it doesn't seem that crowded, although we do have to hire a sheriff's deputy on weekends to help people get out onto the road safely so they can come back and spend more money next year. But ornamentals, we're crazy enough to have a stock plant house where we overwinter a lot of rare fuchsias and salvias and coleus that you can't readily get in the trade. And one of our young women that works for us, Daisy, who we named Daisy after she started propagating, her name was Daedra. They did an article on us a number of years ago in the New York Times, and I told them that she could root a broomstick. She's just very talented. She's been working with us for 30 years and does a fantastic job. Last year we employed, even though a bunch of them were college kids and high school kids part-time, we employed 51 people. So we had a pretty big crew most of the year, and we're very fortunate that most of our people return each year. The college and high school kids, we sort of grade them out a little bit sometimes, but I think it was Jake Guest that told me, you hire a high school boy, you get 1 high school boy. You hire 2 high school boys, you get half a high school boy, and you hire 3 high school boys and you don't get any high school boys at all. So he always said, hire female athletes. They're always looking at each other's bucket, seeing who's picking them more than they are. So we've had pretty good luck with that approach. So one of the other things that we feel is very important is seedlings and propagating on a heated bench. This is a unit from Biotherm that we've had for many years, And we keep this at roughly 75 degrees. And you can heat, especially in, you know, February and March, you can heat the air all you want, but it's really hard to keep those flats at 75 degrees. So it's a very simple system. You can set it up yourself really, even as long as you can get the tubing. It's a run off a hot water heater and a control unit. And it's just crucial to especially propagating cuttings. It's really crucial for us, and also to keep the tomatoes warm this time of year. Keep them at least 65 degrees. So one of the things that I always like to look at are the economics of some of the things we do. I'm taking a 14 by 96 foot greenhouse, and you can, I mean, some people are very good. They can get a lot more money out of it. All our greenhouses have at least 2 crops go through them. Some of our greenhouses, about a third of them, have 3 crops go through them. So we're using them, you know, a lot of the months of the year. So if you get $4,000 to $5,000 worth of greens out of a 14 by 96, that's pretty good. If you use tomato plants and you can average 15 pounds, that comes out to 18,000. Oops. Oh, I got my my ending thing here a little too soon. But if you look at bedding plants, you know, a 14 by 96 will hold 750 1020 flats. And if you have, we do a lot of 806s, we do some 606s, especially for tomatoes. I will say also for tomatoes and eggplant, we use an organic product. It's pelletized fertilizer called Sustain, which gives them a little more punch and helps them last a little longer in the greenhouse. And like Eli and Andy, we do many successions because we have people coming from so many different zones. So some people, years ago, we used to have everything ready by Memorial Day. Now we have to have everything ready Mother's Day, and it keeps getting earlier and earlier. We used to tell many, when we first started, to tell people, well, I'm sorry, I can't sell them to you yet because they might die. And so I remember Vern standing by one of our greenhouses saying, yeah, it's way too early to plant stuff. And they said, yeah, okay. Then they went down to Agway and bought plants. So now we have everything ready. And if they have to buy them again, well, great. But if you look at, especially like herbs, you do them a 750 flats in a 14 by 96 foot greenhouse, and they have 18 pots per flat in a 3 3/4 inch pot. You know, that comes out to $81,000. So you can see the economics of bedding plants compared to growing a lot of vegetables in the ground. And with our organic bedding plants, once we're through with those, we can put in greenhouse tomatoes or peppers or eggplant, and then that we usually pull those in like September or October, and then we put greens in for our winter CSA. So I guess there's the slide that's supposed to end the show, and I guess that's all I got.
Wow, thanks, Jack. I think everybody's gonna run out and change their business model quickly. It's incredible to look at
I will
those numbers.
say, you know, big storms coming, go on Amazon, that monitor can be delivered overnight. You'll be all protected.
Yeah, no, that's really amazing information. And it's great to see the range of like affordability too, to know that there's some low cost options for just a wake up call in the middle of the night.
Yep.
I know we're running a little over, but there was 2 questions kind of for all of you guys, if you have 1 second. One was just benefits to root shield. I mean, I could speak that like scientifically, I know it's a known antagonist to soil-borne diseases like Pythium and Fusarium, and that it actively protects roots against them. But I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that, why you're using it or not.
Well, I could say it's one of the only organic fungicides that we can use. There are a ton of new organic pesticides and fungicides out now. Thank you, cannabis industry, because they have the money to do a lot of this research. But we found Root Shield really works well, And so the plant is in all different stages of growth, so we continually use it. I know there are other options. The mycorrhizae we just started using a couple of years ago. We noticed a huge difference in that. So we actually team that. We use a lot of biochar now in our greenhouses, which has made a huge difference too. So you're always learning, and it's I know those other guys. I know Andy and Eli probably use Root Shield a lot too. So
yeah, I mean, I think it reduces, for us, it definitely has reduced damping off, when seedlings are really small. I think we have much better success than we used to. And that's one of the drawbacks of growing the way we do in those seed flats, is can be more tendency to damp off. And we really don't, other than with Gomphrena, which I don't know how you can grow Gomphrena, but we don't see any damping off or any major issues with it. So
Great, thanks. Also, a quick question: if you've tried anything besides peat moss, like rice hulls? It sounds like you're mostly buying pre-made mixes.
Yep.
yeah, I know that there's been some controversy about the sustainability of peat moss. You talk to the Canadian growers and they say there's like 1,000 years of it, and it can replenish itself. I haven't tried rice hulls. We have we have had mixes with core in it, coconut fiber, and that actually has worked really well. It keeps the top of the soil dry, and so it's a big help against fungus gnats. Colonizing on there. We also use a product called Nemesis nematodes, and there's other companies that do it too that are it's organically approved, and it's very good to use for. It was developed for fungus gnats, but it works great on thrips larvae also. So I think that's an important product.
Great. Well, I'll let everybody head out. We'll I just tried to post a link to Root Shield for that question. And thank you so much to our presenters. You guys are amazing. So much knowledge, and we will look forward to seeing everybody next week. We're talking about tomatoes with some amazing presenters as well. So thanks a lot. I hope everyone has a great week.
All right, thanks, Becky.
Thank you.